Hello, I'm Jake Daly, Disabled American Veterans, past Department of Ohio, District 2 Commander, 2008-2010. Today, I present a 2018 Veterans Day message from the second floor balcony of the Dayton, Ohio Masonic Center. This handsome Gresham-style building was opened in April of 1928. This building contains 250 rooms, 7 pipe organs, a 13,000 square foot auditorium, which seats almost 1,900 people. Tours are available through request. Behind me is an interesting view of the river and the skyline of the city of Dayton. On behalf of the veteran community, we thank the Masonic organization for allowing us the opportunity to deliver this Veterans Day message from this historic location. In my preparations for today's message, I ran across this piece of information from former President Ronald Reagan. It was delivered at Arlington National Cemetery on November the 11th, 1985. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country in wars far away. The imagination plays tricks. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, grave and gray hair. But most of them were boys when they died. They gave up 2 lives. The one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered, wise old men. They gave up everything for their country, for us. All we can do is remember. I will begin today with a poem by George L. Skypid. I was that which others did not want to be. I went where others feared to go and did what others feared to do. I asked nothing from those who gave nothing and reluctantly accepted the thought of eternal loneliness should I fail. I have seen the face of terror, felt the stinging cold of fear, and enjoyed the sweet taste of a moment's love. I have cried, pained, and hoped, but most of all, I have lived times that others would say were best forgotten. At least someday, I will be able to say I was proud of what I was, a soldier. As a nation, we have lived in safety and comfort for so long that for many Americans, our easy, carefree life is taken for granted. However, there have always been a select group of Americans willing to fight and die for a cause greater than their own self-preservation. They are called veterans. We are here today to demonstrate our appreciation to our veterans, those living and dead, who in every war and conflict since our nation's beginning have given testimony to their loyalty to this nation and their own extraordinary courage. By the way, approximately 20% of today's military is female. What is a veteran? According to the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Title 38, Section 101. The term veteran means a person who served in the active military, naval, or air service, and who was discharged or released therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable. Now, some veterans wear visible signs of their service: missing limbs, a jagged scar, a certain look in the eye. Others may carry the evidence inside them: a pin holding bone together, a plate in the skull, a piece of shrapnel or bullet inside their body, or perhaps another sort of inner steel, the soul's ally forged in the refinery of chaos, death, and danger of combat. In parades, however, many of the men and women who have kept the United States safe wear their badges, medals, and emblems, and sometimes even their old uniforms. But overall, you can't tell a veteran just by looking. Who is a veteran? He or she is the cop on the street who spent 6 months in Saudi Arabia sweating out 2 gallons a day, making sure the armored personnel carriers were able to complete their mission. He or she is the practical joker whose joking behavior is outweighed 100 times in the cosmic scale by 4 hours of extreme bravery near the 38th parallel in Korea. He or she is the nurse who fought against futility and went to sleep sobbing every night for 2 solid years in Da Nang. He or she is the POW who went away one person and came back another, or didn't come back at all. He or she is the boot camp drill instructor who has saved countless lives by turning slouchy, confidence-lacking, directionless, and naive young people into soldiers and Marines. He or she is the parade-riding veteran who pins their ribbons and medals on with a prosthetic hand. He is the anonymous heroes in the Tomb of the Unknowns, whose presence at Arlington National Cemetery must forever serve the memory of all the anonymous heroes whose valor dies unrecognized on the battlefields or in the ocean's sunless deep. He is that old individual bagging groceries at the supermarket, palsied now and aggravatingly slow, who helped liberate a Nazi death camp and wishes all day long that his wife was still alive to comfort him when his nightmares come. He or she is an ordinary, yet an extraordinary human being, a person who offers some of their lives' most vital years in service to their country. In the words of Veterans of Foreign Wars past National Commander John W. Stroud, veterans have given not only to our nation's defense, but to its continuing growth as a society. Countless veterans have made individual contributions to every sphere of American life since this nation's birth. When you think about it, this nation's veterans have been called upon throughout our history to guarantee the great hopes of our founding fathers in a world tormented by tension and conflict. We, as citizens of this nation, should continuously endeavor to serve our veterans as well as they have served our nation, and we must honor their families, for they have served and sacrificed as well. Our veterans have completed extraordinary accomplishments, and we do owe them an extraordinary debt for those accomplishments and their dedication. It is important to remember each veteran represents an oath taken, including the possibility of death. I am reminded of a saying which I think is clear and to the point. A veteran is a citizen who at one point in their life wrote a blank check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. That is dedication. That is patriotism. That is honor. Remember, it is the veteran, not the preacher, who has guaranteed us freedom of religion. It is the veteran, not the reporter, who has guaranteed us freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has guaranteed us freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the campus organizer, who has guaranteed us freedom to assemble. It is the veteran, not the lawyer, who has guaranteed us the right to a free trial. It is the veteran, not the politician, who has guaranteed us the right to vote. It is the veteran who salutes the flag, who served under the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag. I will end with a piece, really an ode to the Vietnam veteran. It came out in the latter part of the Vietnam War. It is entitled "The Things They Carried," and the author is unknown. They carried P-38 can openers and heat tabs, watches and dog tags, insect repellent, gum, cigarettes, Zippo lighters, salt tablets, compressed bandages, ponchos, Kool-Aid, 2 or 3 canteens of water, iodine tablets, Sterno, LRRP rations, and C rations stuffed in socks. They carried standard fatigues, jungle boots, bush hats, flak jackets, and steel pots. They carried the M16 assault rifle. They carried trip flares and claymore mines, M60 machine guns, the M79 grenade launcher, M14s, CAR-15s, Stoners, Swedish Ks, 66 millimeter laws, shotguns, 45 caliber pistols, silencers, the sounds of bullets, rockets, and choppers, and sometimes the sounds of silence. They carried C4 plastic explosive, an assortment of hand grenades, the PRC Prick 25 radio, knives and machetes. They carried napalm, CBUs, and large bombs. Some risked their lives to rescue others. Some escaped the fear, but dealt with the death and damage. Some made very hard decisions, and some just tried to survive. They carried malaria, dysentery, ringworms, and leeches. They carried the land itself as it hardened on their boots. They carried stationery, pencils, pictures of their loved ones, real and imagined. They carried love for people in the real world and love for one another, and sometimes they disguised that love. Don't mean nothing. They carried memories for the most part. They carried themselves with poise and a kind of dignity. Now and then, there were times when panic set in and people squealed or wanted to but couldn't, when they twitched and trembled and covered their heads and said, "Dear God," and hugged the earth and fired their weapons blindly and cringed and begged for the noise to stop and went wild and made stupid promises to themselves, God, and their parents, hoping not to die. They carried the traditions of the United States military and memories and images of those who served before them. They carried grief, terror, longing, and their reputations. They carried the soldier's greatest fear, the embarrassment of dishonor. They crawled into tunnels, walked point, and advanced under fire so as not to die of embarrassment. They were afraid of dying, but too afraid to show it. They carried the emotional baggage of men and women who might die at any moment. They carried the weight of the world. They carried each other.